Chika was the kind of woman everyone in the village of Omiko admired. She was kind, respectful, and beautiful in a quiet, graceful way. Her skin glowed like polished mahogany, and her laughter warmed the hearts of even the grumpiest elders. But most of all, people admired her because of her marriage to Ikin, the village's most handsome and successful herbalist. Ikin was tall, with smooth brown skin and eyes that could charm even the angriest market seller. He dressed in fine native wrappers and moved with the confidence of a man who had everything. People came from other towns just to buy his healing herbs, and he always had money in his pocket. When he married Chika, the whole village said she was the luckiest woman alive. But inside their home, Chika carried a secret pain. At first, everything seemed perfect. Ikin treated her like a queen. He bought her gold earrings, colorful headscarves, and even hired someone to help with house chores. He always said, "My wife must not suffer," and the words made her heart swell with love. But as time passed, Chika started to notice something strange. Every night, Ikin insisted on certain rituals. He said they were for bonding their souls, for connecting energy, for helping him recharge after working with herbs all day. At first, Chika believed him. After all, he was a healer. What did she know about spiritual energy? But these rituals became more frequent every night. Sometimes even during the day. And every time they finished, Chika felt drained, dizzy, and weak. Her legs trembled like plantain leaves in the wind. She would fall asleep the moment her head touched the pillow, and wake up more tired than before. One morning, she struggled to carry a small bowl of yam into the kitchen. Her arms shook. Sweat ran down her back even though it was still early and the air was cool. When Ngozi, her childhood friend, came to visit, she gasped. "Chika, what is happening? Your cheeks are hollow. Your eyes look tired," Ngozi said, touching her arm gently. Chika forced a smile. "It's nothing. Just stress. You know marriage comes with responsibilities." Ngozi frowned. "Is Ikin treating you well?" Chika nodded quickly, too quickly. "Yes, of course. He loves me. He says I'm the light in his life." But deep inside, Chika wasn't sure anymore. Something wasn't right. Her dreams had changed too. In them, she saw herself lying in a river, her body surrounded by strange symbols. Her wrists were tied, and Ikin stood on the riverbank, watching. He never moved. He just watched. She had told Ikin once, just once, about the dreams. He had laughed and said, "You worry too much, my love. Let me prepare a tonic for you. You need to relax." But the tonic didn't help. Nothing did. Now, each time she looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. Her skin had lost its glow, her eyes looked sunken, and her bones stuck out more than before. And yet, Ikin continued as if nothing was wrong. He still smiled, still held her at night, still spoke gently. But she felt her life slipping, one night at a time. And somewhere deep in her heart, a tiny voice began to whisper. Love should not feel like dying. That night, as Ikin whispered sweet words into her ear and held her close, Chika kept her eyes open and stared at the ceiling. Her heart beat slower. Her thoughts were loud. She didn't know what was happening to her yet. But she knew one thing. She had to find out before it was too late. The sun rose over Umiko with its usual golden glow, but for Chika, the morning felt heavier than usual. Her legs barely carried her to the market, yet she forced herself to go. Staying home with Ikin's sharp eyes watching her every move had become harder than facing her own weakness. At the market, Chika moved slowly between the stalls. She held her basket close and greeted people with a faint smile. But the whispers followed her. "Is that Chika?" one woman whispered, fanning herself. "She looks like she's lost half her weight." "Or, she used to shine like fresh palm oil," another replied. "Marriage, It either makes or breaks a woman. Chika heard it all, but she kept her head down. She stopped by Mama Neka's stall to buy yam. The old woman studied her with curious eyes. "Child," Mama Neka said in a low voice, "you are not well. Your eyes, they are tired. What is your husband feeding you?" Chika forced a laugh. "Oh, Mama, it's nothing serious. Just small sickness." Mama Neka leaned forward. "Not all sickness is from food, my dear. Sometimes, it is from the one who shares your bed." Those words sent a cold chill down Chika's back. She thanked the woman quickly and left, but her heart pounded. As she walked home, Ngozi appeared beside her like a shadow. "Chika," she said, grabbing the basket from her weak arms. "We need to talk." Chika sighed. "Ngozi, please. Not today." "No. Today," Ngozi insisted. "You are shrinking before our eyes. I've seen the way Ikin holds you at night. That's not love, Chika. It's hunger." They sat under the shade of a mango tree near the village square. Ngozi turned and looked her straight in the eyes. "You need to speak, Chika. Is he hurting you?" Chika shook her head. "No. He never beats me. He never shouts. But I feel like I'm fading." "Fading how?" "Every night he asks for more. And after, I feel like something is taken from me. Like part of my spirit lives with him." Ngozi's face went pale. "You mean he's doing rituals?" Chika blinked fast. "I don't know. He says it's for love. For bonding." Ngozi grabbed her hand tightly. "That's not bonding, Chika. That's draining. Your dreams, your weakness, the way your body is failing, you need help. Real help." Chika's lips trembled. "But where do I go? Who do I talk to? Everyone thinks Ikin is perfect." Ngozi leaned in closer and whispered, "There's someone. Mama Odochi. She lives past the river, near the old fig tree. They say she sees beyond the flesh. She can tell if what you're feeling is spiritual or deadly." For a long moment, Chika said nothing. The wind rustled the mango leaves above their heads, and the distant cry of a goat echoed in the air. Finally, she whispered, "I'm scared." "You should be," Ngozi replied. "But fear will not save you. Truth will." That evening, Chika stood by the fire, stirring soup with shaking hands. Ikin walked in, wrapped his arms around her waist, and kissed her neck. "My moon," he whispered, "tonight I want all of you." Chika closed her eyes. A tear fell into the soup. She had made her decision. Tomorrow, she would go to Mama Odochi. Because love was not supposed to feel like a slow death. And maybe, just maybe, it wasn't love at all. Chika waited until Ikin left the house the next morning. He said he was heading to the forest to gather herbs, as he often did. But Chika knew he would be gone for hours. She watched him disappear down the path, then closed the door behind him. Today, she wasn't going to Mama Odochi. Not yet. She had something else to do first. For weeks, a strange noise had been coming from behind the kitchen wall, whispers, like wind through dry leaves, and sometimes soft thuds in the night. Ikin had always said it was just the wood shifting or rats running about. But Chika had grown more curious. And now, she was determined. She moved the clay water pot aside and pushed her hand along the wall. Her fingers felt a small crack between the wooden panels. She pressed harder. Click. A panel slid open, revealing a narrow door she had never seen before. Her heart pounded. She lit a palm oil lamp and stepped inside. The room was small, dark, and cold. The air smelled of dried herbs and something sour, like sweat and burnt earth. Shelves lined the walls, filled with jars containing bones, feathers, hair, and things she couldn't name. At the center of the room stood a wooden table. On it were three things that made her blood run cold. A small clay bowl filled with what looked like ashes and blood. A wrapped bundle, her favorite blue wrapper, now dirty and tied with red thread. And a mirror, cracked down the middle, reflecting her face in a broken, ghostly way. But what truly shook her was what sat beneath the table, a sealed calabash, marked with carvings and tied shut with a black cloth. Carved into the calabash in careful script was her name. Chica. She knelt, trembling, and reached for it. The moment her fingers touched the surface, the calabash grew warm. A loud ringing filled her ears. The room seemed to spin, and she collapsed to the ground. In her mind, she saw flashes, Ikin standing in a circle of fire, chanting words she couldn't understand. Her face in the mirror, looking older and frailer. And then, a line of women, all pale, all crying. She woke up moments later, her breath shallow, her hands shaking. This was no ordinary storage room. It was a ritual chamber. She crawled out, shutting the secret door behind her. Back in the light, she sat on the floor, gasping. Everything made sense now. The strange dreams. The growing weakness. The hunger in Ikin's eyes, not for love, but for something else. He was taking pieces of her. Night by night. Bit by bit. When Ngozi returned later that evening, Chika met her at the back of the compound. She pulled her aside and told her everything, about the hidden room, the calabash, the visions. Ngozi's eyes widened. This is not just bad. It's dark. He's tying your spirit to himself. You need spiritual help now. You must go to Mama Odochi first thing tomorrow. Chika nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. I will. That night, she lay in bed beside Ikin, pretending to sleep. His arm was draped across her waist, but she felt cold. Empty. She stared at the ceiling again, counting the breaths in her chest. Tomorrow, she would find the truth. Before Ikin took the last piece of her soul. The sun had barely touched the sky when Chika wrapped her shawl tightly and slipped out of the house. Ikin was still asleep, breathing heavily, unaware that his wife had finally decided to fight for her life. Ngozi was waiting by the village edge, holding a small calabash of palm wine and a kola nut, offerings for Mama Odochi, the priestess who lived beyond the hills, near the whispering fig tree. They walked in silence, the dirt road stretching before them like a quiet warning. Birds chirped in the distance, but Chika heard nothing. Her ears were full of pounding questions. What would Mama Odochi say? What if it was already too late? After nearly an hour, they arrived at a clearing surrounded by tall trees. A hut made of woven palm fronds and mud stood at the center. Smoke drifted gently from the roof, and the air smelled of burnt herbs and old stories. Ngozi called out, Mama Odochi, we seek your wisdom. From the shadows, a figure appeared, a tall, wrinkled woman with skin dark as the earth and eyes that glowed like coals. Her hair was wrapped in red cloth, and around her neck were charms and teeth of animals long forgotten. You bring death in your shadow, the old priestess said, staring at Chika. Come inside. Speak fast. Your time runs short. Inside, the hut was filled with jars, skulls, charms, and mats woven with sacred patterns. Mama Odochi motioned for Chika to kneel. Speak, child. Why have you come? Chika poured out her story, her weakness, the nightly draining, the secret room, the calabash with her name. Her voice trembled with each word. Mama Odochi closed her eyes, muttering in a language older than the village itself. She picked up a bowl of dark water and stirred it with a carved wooden stick. The water clouded. Then cleared. And in it, Chika saw herself, lying still, as Ikin hovered over her, chanting. Her chest rose and fell, slower, slower. Mama Odochi's voice was grave. He is not loving you. He is feeding on you. You are the source of his power, and he has tied your spirit to the earth. You are trapped. Chika gasped. Can I break it? Yes, but the bond is deep. He has completed 6 cycles. The 7th one, if he completes it, you will not wake again. He will rise, but you will be lost. Tears welled in Chika's eyes. What do I do? Mama Odochi reached behind her and brought out a small charm, wrapped in cloth and tied with cowrie shells. Place this under your bed tonight. Speak no word. Do not let him touch you. At dawn, come back, and I will give you the final cure. Chika took the charm with shaking hands. Ngozi helped her up, and together, they bowed in gratitude. As they left the hut, Mama Odochi called after them, her voice like thunder in the wind. Beware the 7th night. A man who feeds on love is more dangerous than a man who feeds on blood. That evening, Chika returned home before Ikin. She placed the charm beneath the bed and said nothing. Ikin returned at dusk, smiling. Oh, my moon is back early today. Come, let us join bodies again tonight. I need your warmth. Chika smiled faintly, but her hands clenched under her wrapper. She said nothing. Tonight, she would obey Mama Odochi's words. Because now she knew the truth. Her husband was not just hurting her. He was killing her. Night fell slowly over Umiko, painting the sky in shades of purple and deep blue. Inside the house, Chika moved like a shadow. Her hands trembled as she lit the oil lamp by the bed. She had hidden Mama Odochi's charm deep beneath the mattress, wrapped in cloth just as instructed. Ikin watched her from the doorway, a glass of palm wine in one hand. My moon, he said with a slow smile, you look so beautiful tonight. Your eyes, they call to me. Chika forced a soft laugh and lowered her gaze. Thank you, my husband. Every word burned her tongue, but she had to play her part. Just one more night. Ikin came closer, placing the wine on the stool beside the bed. He touched her shoulder gently. I missed you today. You've been distant. I'm sorry, she whispered. I was just tired. He kissed her forehead. Let me take the tiredness away. He reached for her. Chika closed her eyes and let him. Her body stiffened with each touch, her heart pounding like a drum inside her chest. The charm beneath the bed pulsed like a second heartbeat. She felt it, working. As Ikin continued the same strange rhythm he always did, murmuring soft chants between kisses, Chika felt a shift in the air. The room grew colder. The oil lamp flickered. Something unseen stirred beneath the bed. Then it began. Ikin suddenly froze. He gasped. His hands fell from her body. His eyes widened, and he clutched his chest. What is this? He whispered. He stumbled backward, breathing heavily, sweat pouring down his face. Chika, what have you done? She sat up slowly, calm now, as if a veil had lifted. I protected myself. Ikin's eyes darted around the room. You went to someone, didn't you? Who told you? Chika stood, wrapping her cloth tightly around her. You thought I wouldn't find out? You thought I wouldn't feel it, the life you were pulling from me. Ikin groaned and fell to his knees, clutching his stomach. You don't understand. I needed your energy, your purity, it was the only way. The only way to what? Chika asked. To stay rich. To stay strong. While I died quietly beside you. He tried to stand, but his legs failed. Chika, please, remove it. Remove whatever you placed under this bed. But Chika didn't move. She turned her back and whispered, if I remove it now, I may never leave this house alive. The lamp went out. Darkness swallowed the room. Ikin cried out, a sharp scream that echoed through the compound. His voice trembled as he crawled toward the bed, reaching beneath it, but the moment his fingers touched the charm, he yelped as if burned. A gust of wind blew in through the window. Chika walked to the door and opened it. Cool air swept across her face. Ikin cowed in pain on the floor, his body shaking. "Please, forgive me." She looked at him one last time. A man she once loved. A man who drained her in the name of passion and control. A man who now lay powerless beneath the same roof where he had stolen her strength. "You said I was your moon," she said softly. "But you tried to eclipse me." And with that, she stepped into the night and did not look back. At dawn, Chika returned to Mama Odochi, heartbroken but alive. The final battle had just begun. When Chika reached Mama Odochi's hut just after sunrise, she looked like a woman reborn. Her eyes were clearer, her steps lighter, but her heart was still heavy with pain. The events of the night before had shaken her to her core. Mama Odochi was already waiting outside, seated beneath the great fig tree with her staff in hand. "You survived the 7th night," she said without even looking up. "That means the charm worked. But your journey is not yet over." Chika bowed low in respect. "Mama, I am ready for whatever comes next." The old priestess nodded slowly. "Good. Because now, the darkness must be pulled out completely. The bond he created is wounded, but not broken. If you return to that house without cleansing, he can still call you to him." Chika's lips trembled. "Then what must I do?" "You must break the spiritual link. We will summon the truth, before the whole village. The land must hear what this man has done. His power lies in secrecy. If light touches his acts, they will lose strength." Chika's heart pounded. "In front of everyone?" "Yes, child," Mama Odochi replied. "Or else the next woman he marries will die before her time, just like you nearly did." By midday, a message had spread like wildfire through Omiko. "Mama Odochi is calling a gathering. She says it concerns Ikin the herbalist." The village square filled quickly. Elders, market women, young boys, palm wine tappers, everyone came. Curiosity buzzed in the air. Ikin had always been admired, even feared by some. To see his name tied to a spiritual matter brought both shock and suspicion. When Ikin arrived, dragging his feet, supported by a walking stick, his once strong body now weak and trembling, murmurs rose through the crowd. "Is that really him? What happened to his strength?" Chika stood at the center of the square beside Mama Odochi. She looked at Ikin, not with hatred, but with the strength of a woman who had faced death and lived to speak of it. Mama Odochi raised her staff, and the crowd fell silent. "This woman," she said, pointing to Chika, "was being slowly killed in her own home. Not by poison. Not by a knife. But by the man who shared her bed." Gasps erupted. Ikin tried to speak, but the priestess silenced him with a wave. "She came to me when her bones had weakened, when her soul was near the edge. And I saw it, through the mirror of the ancestors. This man," she pointed to Ikin, "bound her spirit using a forbidden ritual. Each time they joined as husband and wife, he took from her." The elders leaned in, eyes wide. One of them, Papa Ikena, frowned. "How do we know this is true?" Mama Odochi took a gourd and poured water into a shallow bowl. She dropped a leaf into it and whispered an incantation. The water turned murky, then cleared, and a scene played within the surface like a dream. Ikin in his hidden room, chanting over a calabash. Chika sleeping on the bed. Strange symbols glowing on the floor. The villagers gasped. A woman dropped her basket. Ikin groaned and fell to his knees. Please forgive me. I didn't mean for it to go so far. I was desperate. I wanted more power, more strength. They told me the energy of a woman in love was the most powerful. I didn't think it would kill her." Mama Odochi's voice was firm. "And yet it nearly did." Chika stepped forward. Her voice was calm, but filled with emotion. "I loved him. I gave him everything. I thought I was being a good wife. But I was only being used. Another elder, Mama Njidika, shook her head. How many others has he done this to? Chika turned to the crowd. The spirits showed me. I saw them, women. Weak, crying. His former wives. He said they died of illness. But it wasn't sickness. It was the same ritual. A cry rose from the back. An old woman shouted, "My daughter Nkiru died in his house." I knew it wasn't natural. Another woman added, "My cousin too. He buried her quickly and said it was fever." The crowd turned to Ikin, their faces dark with anger. He collapsed fully to the ground. Papa Ikena stood up and raised a hand. "This is an abomination. A man who feeds on the spirits of his wives cannot live among us." "Yes," several voices shouted. Mama Odochi stepped forward. "Let him not die here. Banishment is worse than death. Let him wander without a home, without a name. Let the spirits he stole from follow him until he fades into the earth." The chief, silent until now, nodded in agreement. From today forward, Ikin is no longer welcome in Umuko. May his feet never touch this soil again. God stepped forward and dragged Ikin to his feet. He was too weak to fight. His eyes met Chika's, filled not with anger, but with shame. He said nothing as they led him away. And then, it was over. The crowd slowly dispersed, the whispers turning into warnings, mothers pulling daughters close, husbands lowering their eyes in reflection. Chika returned to Mama Odochi's hut, where she was given a final cleansing bath with sacred herbs and oils. The bond was broken completely. Later that evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, Chika sat by the fire with Ngozi. "You were so brave," Ngozi said softly. "I was scared every step," Chika replied. "But I knew if I didn't speak, more women would suffer. You saved them. And you saved yourself." Chika looked up at the stars beginning to appear. Mama Odochi said the spirit of a woman in love is powerful. But they forget, when that woman finds her voice, her spirit becomes unstoppable. The fire cracked beside them. In the darkness, Chika finally felt peace returning. But her story was not yet done. Weeks passed after Ikin's banishment, and the village of Omuko began to heal. Yet, the memory of what he had done remained like a scar on the hearts of its people. Mothers now whispered ancient wisdom into their daughters' ears. Fathers prayed more openly for the protection of their homes. The tale of Chika and the darkness she overcame became more than just a story. It became a warning, a lesson, and a source of quiet strength. Chika, once thin and pale like a tree losing its leaves, slowly returned to life. Her eyes grew brighter. Her voice, once soft and unsure, now carried the tone of a woman who had walked through fire and refused to burn. With the help of Mama Odochi, she opened a small healing center at the edge of the village, beside the stream where people fetched water. She named it Ndunwoni, the life of a woman. There, she welcomed women from all over, young brides, widows, and even women from other villages, who came to share their pain, seek advice, or simply sit under her tree and listen. Chika taught them about spiritual boundaries, about the importance of paying attention to one's body and dreams. She told them, love should give life, not take it away. If your love makes you feel like you are dying slowly, then it is not love. It is bondage. Soon, women who had once feared speaking out began to whisper their truths. They would sit with her in the evening, and one by one, they would shed their shame. And just like that, healing began to spread. One day, as Chika finished attending to a young woman whose husband had been secretly practicing charms, the village chief's wife arrived at her doorstep. She was accompanied by two of the elder women and the village priest. Chika stood respectfully, confused. "Good afternoon, Mama," she greeted. "How may I serve you?" The chief's wife stepped forward. "Not to serve, my daughter. Today, We are here to honor you. Chika blinked, surprised. Honor me. The elder woman beside her smiled. You have done what many feared to do. You uncovered evil and brought light to it. You stood when your knees were shaking. That is what leadership looks like. The priest nodded. We have all seen how the women in this village walk taller now. How they no longer whisper their pain but speak it. That is your doing. The chief's wife stepped aside, revealing a wrapped stool carved from sacred Iroko wood. She uncovered it and presented it to Chika. With the blessing of the elders and the spirits of this land, the chief's wife said, we offer you this stool as a symbol. You are now the Ojin Noni, the voice and guardian of all women in Umuko. Tears welled in Chika's eyes as she knelt slowly, touching the stool with both hands. I never asked for this, she whispered. No, Mama Odochi said, stepping out from the shade behind them, but the truth chose you. That evening, a fire was lit in the center of the village. Drums echoed. Women danced barefoot, their anklets jingling, their faces lit with joy and freedom. Young girls sang songs of Chika, calling her the one who rose from silence. Ngozi stood beside her, laughing. Who would have thought? Look at you now, Chika. Chika smiled. I'm still the same woman. No, Ngozi corrected. You are more. You are the woman who said enough. In the crowd, she saw familiar faces, mothers who had lost daughters. Wives who had been afraid to speak. Young brides watching her with wide, hopeful eyes. She stood on the edge of the celebration, feeling the cool breeze sweep through her wrapper, and she whispered a prayer to the stars. Let no woman ever suffer in silence again. Months later, Chika's healing center had grown. It now had a small herb garden, mats for resting, and a library of old women's stories, tales of wisdom, struggle, and survival. Young girls were brought there to learn, not just how to cook and clean, but how to understand their worth. The men of Umuko changed too. They became more cautious with their words, more respectful with their hands. They sat quietly when women spoke during council gatherings, something unheard of in the past. Ikin, as far as anyone knew, was never seen again. Some said he wandered into the forest and was claimed by the same spirits he tried to use. Others believed he lived alone in shame, far from any community. But Chika no longer wondered. He was her past. She had her future. On the first anniversary of her rebirth, Chika sat beneath the fig tree, the same one outside Mama Odochi's hut. A group of girls gathered before her. Tell us the story again, one asked. The story of how you fought the spirit that tried to steal your life. Chika looked at them, her heart full. No, she replied gently. I will tell you something more important. The story of how I found myself again. The girls leaned in. She began. Once, there was a woman who thought silence was strength. She believed that love meant sacrifice, even if it meant losing herself. But then, her body began to speak. Her dreams cried out. And finally, she listened. She rose. And the world rose with her. The village of Umuko never forgot Chika's story. Her name was written into songs. Her journey became part of marriage teachings. Her stool was kept in the women's hall and used during ceremonies when young girls entered womanhood. And whenever a woman in the village began to feel small, weak, or afraid, someone would whisper gently. Remember Chika. The woman who died in love and came back as fire.